All right, everyone, I think we're going to begin. So excited to welcome our two special speakers this afternoon, Sy Montgomery and Dr. Nucharin Songsasen. We're really happy to have them here. Sy is actually one of our communications fellows, so some of you may know about this program where we send out journalists or videographers into the field and have them record their experiences. So Sy, when I first called her, I said, okay, well, we have this great program. We'd love for you to join us. And she said, Earthwatch. I know Earthwatch. Earthwatch changed my life. And we said, great. So we want to send you back out. So she was able to join our Thailand expedition, which Nucharin is the co-PI on. So they'll be talking a little bit about that. But we're so happy to have you here. And I just wanted to give a quick introduction to Sy in case some of you, I know everyone here really does know her entire background, but just in case, who is Sy Montgomery? According to the New York Times, she is equal parts poet and scientist. According to the Boston Globe, she's part, I love this, Indiana Jones and Emily Dickinson. She has been chased by an angry silverback gorilla, bitten by a vampire bat, worked in a pit crawling with 18,000 snakes, and handled a wild tarantula. She's been undressed by an orangutan in Borneo, hunted by a tiger in India, and swum with piranhas, electric eels, and dolphins in the Amazon. She's written more than 24 books for adults and children, one of which, The Soul of an Octopus, which is one of my favorites, was a finalist for the National Book Award. So without further ado, please welcome Sy Montgomery.
Great. Oh, and the switcher. All right, here we go. I just don't want to launch the missile incorrectly. Anyway, gosh, what a treat it is to be here with Earthwatch. Earthwatch has been such an important part of my life, and it's so great to be here with you. And I love it that Lou Magruder is here, who I've worked with for years and years and years and years. Anyway, I just want to tell you thank you and tell you where that thank you comes from. And it starts, as many things do. Whoop, why is this not working? How are you doing that? All right, so this thing basically does not work.
No, you can try it now.
Well, I'm happy where it is now. I want it there.
Press it there, just to test it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, as many good things do, my thank you to Earthwatch begins with wombats. The southern hairy-nosed wombat. Here was the deal. I grew up always loving animals. I was believing for a very long time that I was, in fact, a horse. My mother was very worried. She took me to the pediatrician. Pediatrician said, don't worry, that phase will pass. And it did when I discovered I was really a dog. So, and I grew up thinking that I wanted to be a veterinarian. But then I learned to read and discovered the power that we have to write, to reach citizens and change the world in that way. As a kid, I remember reading about whales and giraffes and rhinoceroses and even our national symbol, our great bald eagle, gonna go extinct because of stuff people did. And that was what made me want to be a writer. Okay, fast forward. I graduate from school. I start working for a newspaper in central New Jersey. I start covering environment and science. And after 5 years, my father, who was always my champion, gave me as a present this ticket to Australia, where I always wanted to go because of the marsupials there. They're so different from the placental mammals that we all know, because all we have is Didelphis virginianus, the Virginia opossum. But of course, over there, everybody's got a belly pocket. So I thought, okay, so I'm going to Australia. I don't want to just go as a tourist. Is there some way that I can learn and maybe even give back? And that's how I discovered Earthwatch. And this was in the early 80s. So I went on the project Drought Refugia with Dr. Pamela Parker, who is my heroine. And how can you not fall in love with somebody like this? I fell in love with wombats. I fell in love with living in the field. I loved the fact that I was living in a tent and I didn't have to struggle into stupid pantyhose every day. And I loved waking up to seeing flocks of parrots turn the sky pink and gray. So when I left tearfully, Dr. Parker said to me, you know, I see that you love this to the bottom of your soul, and I wish I could hire you, but I can't. I don't have any budget for that. And I wish I could give you another ticket to come back next year, but I don't have the money for that. But she said, if you ever wanted to do research on your own, you could come to this camp and I would give you food. So I quit my job and moved to a tent in the outback. And for no money, but for the greatest joy of my life at that time, I ended up studying emus. They're beautiful birds who stand as tall as a man. They can run 40 miles an hour. They can sever fencing wire with a single kick. They're very, very smart. But though they stand beside the kangaroo on the Australian coat of arms, no one really knew what they did all day. So that's what I did. And working with Dr. Parker had shown me that really citizens can do science. So I devised my own way of studying them based on what I had seen her do, based on things I had read about. I had a little data sheet and checked off behaviors. I also did just a narration of what they did. And those 6 months that I spent living in the tent, following these birds around, were the happiest of my life at that time. And I knew that although I had a terrific job at the Courier News in Bridgewater, New Jersey, where I was welcomed back, that I couldn't go back to working for someone else, and that this was the kind of thing I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to learn about animals and write about it and share it with other citizens. So it was Earthwatch that opened that door to me. And it has given me a storybook life. I can't believe what I get to do. Man, I love to write articles. I loved writing for newspapers. I loved writing for magazines because you can write even longer. When you write a book, you can really go on for pages and pages and pages. And it so happens that my first book, which was Walking with the Great Apes, it was about the 3 ladies who changed ethology. Jane Goodall with the chimpanzees of Gombe, Diane Fossey, who studied the mountain gorillas of first Zaire and then Rwanda, and Birute Galdikas. Birute was an Earthwatch investigator. And when I went to live at her camp, there was an Earthwatch team there. So there's Earthwatch right in that book. And the Earthwatch volunteers were really helpful, and seeing how she interacted with her, it was fabulous experience. Although I've got to say, at that time, the part about the leeches dropping out of your socks and underwear at night when you got undressed was really a bummer. But so from there, I increasingly wrote longer things. I increasingly got to write books. My second book was Spell of the Tiger. I went to Sundarban it's between India and Bangladesh. There's this huge mangrove swamp that stretches for 10,000 square kilometers between West Bengal and India and Bangladesh. It's the only mangrove swamp in the world where tigers live. And the tigers will swim out after your boat and get on board and eat you. So naturally, this is where I wanted to go. And my husband was worried, but I told him, don't worry, honey, they're man eaters. But it turns out they really do eat men more than women, because the women stay home where they can be eaten by crocodiles. So the next book I did after that, and I just kept going from book to book to book, learning more and more and more about these animals, took me to meet these strange creatures, pink river-dwelling whales who live in the Amazon, pink river dolphins. They really, as you know, dolphins are all a kind of whale. And one of the things that I had learned from a variety of sources, certainly from Pamela, very very much so in India was, and we were just talking about this at lunch, that the local people will tell you things about the animals that they're studying. And in some cases, their stories are dismissed as silly superstition. The stories about the pink river dolphins were that they could change into people, and they would rise up out of the water and appear like a person at a dance or a festa, and you would fall in love with the pink river dolphin, not knowing that it was really a dolphin, because they sensibly always wore a hat to cover the blowhole. But I did fall in love with these creatures, and I have fallen in love again and again. And it's that love that Earthwatch fosters in all of your volunteers that has led me from one adventure to another. It's taken me underwater. I learned to scuba dive so I could commune with octopuses. This is an octopus, not a piece of coral. Here's the eye. I got to know octopuses at New England Aquarium as close friends who would recognize me looking up at my face. They knew my face from other faces. We know this from all kinds of experiments, including those that were double blind, in which everyone would be dressed exactly the same. But some people wearing the blue shirt would give the octopus a delicious fish, and some people wearing the blue shirt would give the octopus an unpleasant touch with a bristly stick. And the octopuses very quickly learned, even if you left your fish or your bristly stick at home, they'd just look at your face and like, oh, good, here's my friend. Or if you were the one that touched with a bristly stick, they would move away. But often they would first squirt you in the face with freezing cold salt water. But I got to know a number of octopuses, and this is a wild octopus who I got to meet in Moorea, who reached out and touched me and then kind of led me around the neighborhood. It's so amazing. And once I got scuba certified, I got to do great white sharks. This is the Indiana Jones part. And you would think, particularly scuba diving makes a lot of people nervous because you're underwater breathing, which you're told not to do, that it doesn't work. But add a large apex predator known to sometimes bite people, and I wondered if I'd be nervous the first time I saw a great white shark. But what happened the first time I saw a great white shark was I felt this immense relief wash over me, because here came someone who knew what they were doing. We don't know what we're doing with this world. When there's going to be more plastic than fish in the oceans, by 2050, great white sharks know what they're doing. So I was awfully glad when he showed up. Well, in all of the Indiana Jones stuff that I do, the one that always gets everybody the most is the one when I got to work in a pit with 18,000 snakes. And here's one, and in the background, another 18,000 snakes. This was an Earthwatch project. And with it, Nick Bishop, a wonderful photographer who I love working with, and I founded the series Scientists in the Field for young readers for Houghton Mifflin. And this is now a very successful series to which a lot of other writers and photographers contribute. It's for kids in grades 4 through 8. And what do? We go on scientific expeditions with real scientists. Does that sound familiar? Even though we are just laymen. And we kind of take the kid along. We take our readers along and say, this is how you set up your tent, and this is how you cook in this area, and this is how you are able to take your data. And we're going to be there for just a couple of weeks. I mean, it's sounding awfully like Earthwatch here, and it does. It's basically, this entire series is modeled on the experience that I had with Earthwatch. And again, whether I'm trying to do it or not, I run into Earthwatch. Here's another one of the books that I did in that series on Dr. Lori Marker. And she too was an Earthwatch PI. And it's so fun. I don't even know when I go into the field where I'm going to run into Earthwatch. But when I do, I feel like I have something in common, something important in common with these great people who want to give back, who want to learn and give back. So some of you, I write about Earthwatch in my latest book, which is How to Be a Good Creature. It's a memoir in 13 animals. And whenever I speak to groups, groups of children or groups of teachers or in natural history societies or zoos or whatever, I always talk about Earthwatch because people want to do the kind of thing that I've done. And you make it possible for people to do that. You have launched, I am sure, so many neat careers, not just as future PIs, but as better citizens, as photographers, as writers, by giving people a chance to join in an expedition that makes a difference. You're opening doors to people forever and changing their lives. And so when I got the call from Alex to say, you know, we want to give you an Earthwatch fellowship. Have you ever heard of Earthwatch? I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, this has just come so full circle. And she said, you know, you could leave anytime between here and here, and here are the projects that we have going. And they all sound great. I mean, there's no Earthwatch project that I wouldn't want to go on, frankly. But when she got to Asiatic Wild Dogs, I just about shrieked because I went, dholes? Dholes? I was trying to get to know dholes several years ago when I was working on a book called Search for the Golden Moon Bear. I had met a guy, Jim Chamberlain, in Laos, an ethnolinguist, who had been wandering around in the Annamite Mountains and run into a group of hunter-gatherers who hunted with dholes. They would follow the dholes to some food, and it was like a honey guide to a badger, honey badger, a ratel. And I pitched this idea to Discover magazine, and they said, "You go, girl. Here's money for a helicopter." So I got to Laos with $500 in cash in my shoe, and Jim instantly had a heart attack. I mean, not because I had $500 in my shoe, but so I never got there. And now Alex is giving me an opportunity to be with dholes. I could not believe it. So instantly, that's what I wanted to do. And in fact, my best friend, Elizabeth Marshall Thomas, who wrote The Hidden Life of Dogs. How many of you have read that? I mean, a game-changing book. She wanted to go with me too, but she's like 87. And so at one point she thought, you know what, maybe I shouldn't go. So she dropped out. I was very sad. But I brought 2 other good friends with me. And we got to be the Earthwatch team. It was so much fun. So just all I had to do, I got to go along, and all I had to do was blog about it. But of course, you don't know what's going to happen from day to day. You don't know that you're going to see dholes. You never know that you're going to see a wild animal. You just can't tell. And as I learned with the pink dolphins, as I learned with the tigers of Sundarban, often you just don't even see or study animal. Sometimes you have to study the animal from the things it leaves behind. It scats, it kills. Sometimes you have to rely on just tracking it with radio telemetry and never laying eyes on the animal. Sometimes you have to rely on camera traps. So I didn't know if we'd get to see them, but at least I was going to get to go into dhole habitat and look at what this, I don't know if you can see it very well because of the light, but they kind of look like giant stretch foxes. They've got red coats, they've got tall ears, intense, beautiful eyes. I was, of course, dying to see them, but just to be a part of the study that would advance the knowledge of these animals, that was more than enough for me. Now, what Nuch is doing, she's going to explain to you in just a minute, but basically the object was, let's attract the animals to an area where we can capture them for a moment long enough that we can get on a radio collar and let them go, and then we can follow them. They do this by putting out bait. Here's the delicious bait, and here's a dhole approaching it. And so we set up those traps. We had camera traps who would snap their photographs. The thing is, though, dholes aren't the only thing that eats the bait. And you can't just let the animal be stuck in the trap for a long time. for a number of reasons, which Nooch will address, but you don't want to leave any animals stuck in a trap and unhappy. So particularly at night when they tend to be most active, every 15 minutes, we monitored whether the trap had been sprung or not. And we could do that with telemetry because it was set up that way. So every 15 minutes, you check to see, like, is anybody in the traps? And sometimes there was somebody in the trap, but it wasn't a dhole. However, I've got to tell you, one of the great joys of being there was Kauai National Park, where we were, was full of wildlife at close range and really interesting wildlife. These muntjacs, which is like Bambi meets Dracula. They're these deer with these pointy little fangs. They're adorable and really cool. We also had this giant Sambar stag, 1,000-pound deer with a huge rack, who just hung out right next to our little guest house. Every morning you'd get up and there'd be this guy there, and you'd have to walk around him. And right outside our doors at night, one night we saw 5 giant porcupines, and they're not like the porcupines we have at home. These are like big porcupines. The wildlife experience was astonishing. You'd be walking around and run into somebody like this, wild Asian elephants, and probably the most amazing experience. Now, I had mentioned that I was doing this book at one point called Search for the Golden Moon Bear, and I won't bore you with the details, but we found lots of moon bears or Asiatic black bears. All of these were gold coated. We found them in captivity. We tried schlepping around in the forest looking for them, but in all of my trips, and I think there were like 4 trips to Cambodia, to Laos, to Thailand, we never, ever, ever, ever saw a moon bear in the forest. I go to the dhole expedition, and who do I see in the forest? This darling cub who we watched for half an hour at close range. It was right across a little stream. Unbelievable to see a darling bear cub feeding and exploring for half an hour, an unobstructed view. We could not believe it. Meanwhile, in back of us, like 20 yards away, people are in their tents and they're drinking lattes and I mean, it's a great place. It's just a fabulous place. And the folks that we got to work with were just wonderful. Poor Nooch, she's like, I'm never going to get this woman off me. She's like a tick. But once you work with someone, once someone has given you an opportunity like this, when they give you a gift like that, you are going to be friends forever. So good luck getting away from me, Nooch. Anyway, now we want to hear you tell us about this fantastic animal that brought me into your life.
I thought when Alex said, talk those 5, I was like, oh, maybe it's just 4 or 5 people, easy. And look at this. What is this?
So Nucharin was amazing in the field with our team and with Sy. And at one point, I mean, Sy is your standard reporter in the sense that she has her notebook and her pen at the ready every moment of every day asking questions, which was great. But Nuch at one point was kind of introducing the field research task, and she said, okay, does anyone have any questions? Sy, no questions from you. Does anyone else have any questions? Great.
Thank you. And should I just keep? Where is my slides? Yeah. Okay, I can distract you. So it's been great to have Sy in and the team with us for a week. I wish that you could be there for 2 weeks. You know, we had so much fun, and my experience with Earthwatch is that everybody is so nice and willing to do whatever we ask them to do. Sometimes it's not very, it's very strenuous task, and you still want to do it, and without any questions. Well, except one. Oh, not this one. No, no, no. Hello. No, no, no. Let's go back to the beginning. So, I guess what I got to do today is just tell you a little bit about those. Um, as I always tell people that if you want to learn something from the talk is that you need to learn how to pronounce them properly, because a lot of people which doesn't know anything about this species will call them dholes, and they're not dholes, they are dholes. And another name that people give them is whistling hunter, because those use their pack animal and then communicate with the pack member through this vocalization that will make. And they have a different type of vocalization that will use alarm call, uh, pups asking for food, play calls, and just greeting calls. So that's very complex. And I try to explain to Sy, what it like to know what dole call would be like. But I just can't even imitate the dole call because it's just so complex that I don't think any human can do justice of what that like. But I think I have a video in here that might have the sound. So let's start. Uh, so first, what are those? How they relate to any other of canid species in the family? So those are a group of wolf-like canid, which is this part we have domestic dogs, gray wolves, African painted dogs, and they are closely related to the African painted dog. So the knowledge that we assume about those is came from this species. So because the painted dogs are also pack animal, has alpha male, alpha female, has a big large intestinal size. So and hunt big prey. So we assume that those are very similar to painted dog. But we don't know for sure. That's why we need to do the study. So what the species status? There are not many people know about those, but don't even realize that these species are actually endangered species. And the last assessment that the IUCN did on the species status, we estimate that there are only about no more than 5,000 individuals, adult individuals that would breed. And the total population, including pups and everything, is about 10,000, which is not a lot. And they range in a very large the distribution range. There's some starting down from China, and in Mongolia, Nepal. Most of them are in India, and in Myanmar, Thailand, and then down into and Malaysia and Indonesia. And the problem is that they're living in the very fragmented habitat. There's not a lot of connectivities among population. So the gene flows, how the sustainability in terms of maintain gene diversity and population size is the main concern. And the threat for the species is that loss of habitat is the main threat, and then decline in prey species. Because a lot of these countries that there's a lot of poaching going on that would targeting deer, muntjac, wild pigs, or anything that they would eat. And with decline of prey species, and then in some of this area, they have to share the habitat with tiger and leopards. And you imagine have these big predators that were relying on large prey and not enough food to eat. So they also had to compete with tiger and leopards. And when you compare dogs and cats, I love dogs. You guys love dogs, right? But when you compare tigers and dogs, people is like, oh, dog, I don't care about dogs. They're just a dog. We love tigers. So a lot of conservation community scientists, all the money go toward tiger conservation, but not many people really pay attention about these great little dogs that running in pack. But actually, they are as important to the ecosystem health as much as tiger does. So, and because of their dogs, people don't like them for some reason. You know, we think about wolves. You know, people for some reason of all the canid species in around the world have this bad reputation for some reason, and they've been poisoned, they've been shot, and there's no people, there's no conservation action plan to any of these countries that they live in. So there's the status that declining the species that number that we just had a workshop last in February that we bring all the people who work with those or who know about those come in together and talk about the status of this species in that country. And in consensus, we feel that the future of these species are not very bright because the lack of knowledge, lack of conservation plan, and the habitats and prey population are declining. So the trend that population of those got to decline if we do not do something about it. And disease could be one of the concern because, for example, in Thailand, in the park that we study, we also observe that domestic dogs do come in the park, and that dog could bring disease that could decimate the population as well. So as I said, their social behavior are very similar to African wild dogs. So they are collaborate breeding. So there's alpha male and alpha female. But in our recent observation, when we radio collars lactating female, and then in the same pack, we also observe another lactating female. So it could be that the two in the big pack like that, that could be more than one female that breed. But we don't know that. There should be more study to confirm that. And when the young animal disperse, so it's the male, there will be male bias. Male pups will youngling go to move out of the pack and then go to try to find their mate and distribute their own pack. So in Thailand, so those occur in mostly in protected area. So this is Kauai National Park where Sy and Alex and Heather was, and it's a place that you can see those more often. I believe there's a higher density of those in this park. And then there's also in the Western Forest Complex that the Hoi Ka Keng Wildlife Sanctuary, that's a project site, also is also there. And there's those population there as well. And then Khao Ang Rinai Wildlife Sanctuary, this is where I start my first dog projects there in the eastern Thailand. Okay, so what is the problem of those in Thailand? So why we need to study them? So Thai people don't know about those. I have friends in Thailand when they ask me what are you doing in Thailand? I say, well, I'm coming to study those. Like, what? Do we have those? It's like, yeah. I said, what it like? You know, they don't even know what is this animal, and let alone knowing that this is endangered species. And even the government of Thailand, the people who have responsibility to protect wildlife, not even understand that the species is in trouble across the world. Before I start the projects, we have my colleagues do a camera trapping in Thailand in Kauai National Park to looking for clouded leopards. And we have student and working with her. And then from my conversation with the student, she told me that, you know, Thai people think that those are overabundant. and their proposal to eliminate them from the park because they cause the decline of prey species. So their proposal that the park chief want to shoot to kill all the does and eliminate them from the park. I was like, well, how would that be? This is endangered species. Why would you want to do that? So that kind of sparked my interest in study those, because my job at the Smithsonian is that I was tasked to develop the canid conservation program. And I study Maine wolves in Brazil. That was my first species. And then when the Maine wolf program started to stabilize, I have students and people who work in the field. Then I'm looking for the next species to go. And those is uh, perfect because it come from my home country. I'm from Thailand. To go back home to help species in my birth country, so is a natural thing to do. So I start going to meet with people in the Thai government and tell them, hey, I heard that you have those in Thailand and it is endangered species. And then they look at me like, what? It's like, yeah, there's in trouble. There's only have a few thousand left, and then they don't believe me. So I said, well, why don't you let me, our team, study this species, and we'll find out how many of them left in Thailand and what status in Thailand. So they said, okay. So it takes a couple years um, to apply for the research permit, because even I am Thai, I'm considered American because I work for American institution. So I can't go into Thailand and work without any Thai partner, which is that makes sense, because when you want to start a conservation program in a country, then you should have a local partner who could continue on the projects even after you leave. So go to Thailand and study that and start the projects. So the goal of these projects is that just to understand the biology and the movement ecology of those species, because what we want to answer and that are those really overabundant in Thailand, and how what are their threat, and what any other biology of the species. So what we can learn from them, what type of habitat they use, how big is a pack, what do they eat, and where they are. So we start in Kauai, which is on the eastern forest complex. Is up here. And it's not a great place to start. Actually, I want to start in Kauai, but I couldn't at that time because the chief of Kauai do not like foreigner, and I'm a foreigner in their eyes. So I can't go there, and there's a lot of politics going on. So when you start a project in a new country, you want to find a partner that would willing to work with you and help you along, because they know a lot more about the place than I do. I can't just go in and say, hey, I want to do it here. I have to go talk to people and ask them to help me to start the projects. So the chief of Kauai Wildlife Sanctuary loved science, and he was willing to work with me on this project. So we start when we know there's a dole there. So we start the project here. And then we moved into Salak Plat Wildlife Sanctuary, which is on the western part of Thailand. And then after several years that we've been in Thailand, people starting to know us, know about our projects. And then the change of the chief of Kauai National Park. So they have a new leader in this park, and this leader is an amazing guy who want to use science to manage his park. So he called me up and said, hey, I heard that you study those in this place and that place. Would you be interested to come to Kauai and study those here? I said, yes, I want to go, because this is a place that I want to do the study, because it's a place that people talk the most. Because with Kauai is that it's a national park, the most popular park in Thailand, #1 park in Thailand that have most visitors. and the park would manage the grassland in a way that would draw deer in, so people can see them. And then imagine those, if you are those, and there are a whole bunch of deer here, where would you go? So you would go where your food are. And the way, because those are not very big, and they would hunt sambar deer would weigh like 1,000 kilo, which much bigger than them. So, and then in broad daylight, and when people see, and people would feel bad for the deer, oftentimes would throw stone at those and then chase them away. And the way they kill this animal is not very pretty, because they're so small. They can't just one bite and be done with it. They have, they do a lot of things, biting and eating at the same time. So it's not really pretty picture for people to see. So that gives them bad image, and then people don't like them. And that give people impression that they can see those here and there and there, and they say, oh, there's so many of them, without any knowledge that is this the same animal that you see or the different pack. So that's why when the chief of Kauai asked me to go, say, well, you want to study in Kauai? I said, yes, of course I would like to go, because this is where the problem, the bad name start for this species. So if we could answer some of these questions, that will help reduce these misperceptions of the species in Thai community. And then we also went to Hoi Ka Keng. This is the two places that we are studying those right now. Hoi Ka Keng is part of Western Forest Complex. It have a high biodiversity, and also the difference between Kauai and HKK or Hoi Ka Keng is that Kauai is a top predator. There are no tiger. Tiger already extinct in this park. And HKK also have tiger and leopard, so we can compare how those use a habitat in between the two areas. So the techniques that we use, we do camera trappings. Like when we start in our first study site in Khao Ang Rinai, I spent 2 years camera trappings, because we know those are there, but we don't know where to put trap because it's a big space. So we do two years, and to confirm that at this time of the year, they'll always come this place, and then you will have a high likelihood of having success. So we did that, and then we capture those. And then we also collect fecal samples and to study diet. This is like Earthwatch volunteers helping us, tease out what that remain from the scat. And then we setting up trap and capture those to place a radio collars, collect blood sample, do health assessment, collecting ticks and thing, and also getting ticks from those. And then we do telemetries, and even though we could get location from the satellite, but it's always good to be able to visualize animals. So when we have signal, we do telemetry, we know where they are, or when they hunt, we can go and see who's there, which pack, and observe their behaviors. Because just looking at the location on the satellite on website is not enough, but to learn about the animal, you have to watch them, observe them, see their behavior to better understand the species. And then when we have a location, we can go look for dens, to see what type of den they make, and then perhaps put the cameras and then observe the pups behavior that way. And then, as I say, we can observe their behavior by the visualization. So since I started the project in Thailand, in Khao Ang Rinai, so right now we captured a total of 17 dholes so far. And when we put collars on 10 animals in 4 sites, and Khao Yai, where we have most animal collars. So what have we learned? So the first question, do there more dholes than the prey? I said no, because when based on our camera trap data, this is a relative abundance of, this is in Khao Ang Rinai, we have the lower density of dholes, And in Kauai National Park, there's not the relative abundance of doves is 3 or 4 times less than their prey. So we see a lot of signs of deer, sambar deer, barking deer, wild boars, but we don't see those that often. So they're not as abundant as people believe. And we found that they have really big home range. In some area, they can go, their home range could go up to like 400 square kilometers, a very big area. And in Kauai, where people, and before I go, I went ahead of myself. I was so excited to talk, so I just keep going. So they have very big home range, but the problem is that most study radio calling those in the past, including our study at the very beginning, we already monitor those for a couple months. Because one of the challenge in calling those or put GPS collars on this animal is that they live in the forest, and the if you put collars on animal in that live in a grassland or in desert, you get location all the time, and then doesn't the battery of that collar will last longer. But when you in the animal spend a lot of time in the forest, the collar has to spend time communicating with the satellite, and most of the time is not successful. And because of this limitation, the collar do not last that long. So most of the study beginning, or even including ours, so now we only keep the collar long for about 2 or 3 months. So we only follow them for a very short period of times, and most of those data that come out said their home range are very small. But then in this case, we were able to follow them for 10 months. And how would I make the video to work? Oh, it's just okay. Yeah. I was talking about maybe looking. I'm paying attention to my slides. Okay. So we captured this animal in February. Her name is Valentine because we caught her on the February 15th, and she was lactating when we captured her. And we learned later that she had 2 pups with her months later. And at the beginning, you can see that she would go out and go back in the same place with probably her den. And the home range are very small. She doesn't go that far because her pups are still so young that she can't travel that far. So, but when the pups grow up, look at where she goes. She go everywhere. And this about 1/3 of this big park. So when people said, oh, we can see doe here and see doe there, I will see the same pack or the same group of animal. So they're not really that many of them out there. Okay, here. So this is in Kauai. This is data that we collect last year. So we have 3 animals here. So it's a male, that which are alpha male of 1 pack. This in yellow, guys. And the green is another male, alpha male of the 2nd pack. And the red is the female, lactating females here of, she belong to the green pack. So the 2 pack can overlap. And this is our camp, our guest house right here. So these 2 packs were sharing the point that they were overlapping the area, and this is the border, and we were right in the middle of it. When Heather was there, we have 2 doe packs, living right there, a total of 30 animals. But this green pack would range up almost to the entrance of the park on the north side. And the yellow one would go to almost to the entrance of the south side of the park. So this is a very big area. So before we start the project, people said, oh, we can see the 1 pack here, there's 1 pack there, and another pack here, another pack there, but actually there's just like 2 packs. Because people don't pay attention when they see those. When I ask them, I say, have you seen those lately? It's like, yeah, oh, we see them now and then, but when did you see them? Like, well, I don't know. We could see them now and then. It's like, oh, you take time, please write it down. just just the hunt, like, but so it's hard. So what we know now is that in this core area of the park, there are only 2 pack of those. That's about total of 30 animals. Before we start the project, people said, well, the 2,000 those in Kauai. It's like, what, 2,000 those? That's entire the distribution range is impossible. But now we know that there's only 2 of this pack that range. But this past year that we went and Sy and Alex was there, this 2 pack was not there. We don't know where they went. We couldn't see their sign. We only see 3 does that come to our traps, and that's about it. So it's a big mystery that where all these animals go. So we have a student who just start his PhD project who would do a camera trap throughout the park, and we will try to capture models on the another side of park, which we know that these 2 packs do not go. So we estimate that about 3 or 4 packs that live in Kauai, and then estimate maximum will be about 80 animals based on what we know. So it's not 2,000. It's only much less than that. So, and I cannot bring you those of you here, but I have this video, which is, if it's play. Hello. Where's the play button? Where's my play button? Oh, maybe it's oh yeah. So this is a Sambar Deer right there. So this is happened. This is a week. I think Heather. Well, you don't know. I think you were not there. The different team was there. So at night, in midnight, I was in bed. I heard this screaming outside the house. So I ran outside. There was 3 or 4 does chased the Sambar Deer past the house, run into this reservoir that right next to our house. And we heard all the killing and everything was, my heart was like, please just kill that thing, just eat it. But then finally everything quiet. So in the morning, so we went the scout team to go out, and we found carcass of deer across the pond. And this poor Sandbar was waiting there because watching his friend or her friend being eaten. And this is the 4 teenagers. So adult dog will come and eat as much as they can, and they will go back to the den, bring food to the pups, and leave these teenagers to guard the den. And what teenagers do? Teenagers play. They're belly full, no point of hunting anymore. So they're just hanging out and just play around. So I know that many Earthwatch volunteers were able to watch this from the last year. I'm sorry, guys, you don't get to see this, but at least you can see the video. So it's a good opportunity to watch their behaviors, and I think that if people can see this, the image of this vicious image of those going to be slowly disappear. So we try to tell people like they're not as vicious enough. They carnivore. They have to eat eventually. Like us. Just like we eat cow, we don't have to kill our own cows, but we do eat meat. So the same thing. Animal had to die for us to eat. So it's the same. It's the same concepts. Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, because those don't go in the water. In the water, they're standing there with the dog get in the water. They start stomping the water. It's like, don't get in here. And then they're standing there for until noon. They're afraid to move. I think if they move, the dog wouldn't care, but they're just standing there for hours. And then when the dog get in the water, and then just to play, and then just stomp the feet, and then okay, yeah. So I want to know, be in their head what they feel like. Yeah. So I think beside getting data about those, but one thing that think this project is all about is that we're building team of people. So when I start, only my graduate student, me, and then few assistants. So that in 2008, three of us stomping the wood. And now we have more people. They have two more graduate students and the whole team of people that work with us, and even government officers invite us to go give a talk and listen to us and what about to learn what we find and want our advice on how to manage those. So I think we came a long way in the past 10 years. I still more work to do, but I think we make a lot of progress on these projects, and something I'm very proud of. And working with Earthwatch, the obvious is that you have citizen scientists that come out help us collecting data, but the thing is that I think that very important for the project is that spread the love for those. You know, most volunteers come beside Sy who know those, but nobody knows about them. But to be able to hear the story, see them in person, and go back home and tell their friends, the family about the species and the challenge the species is facing is very important. And building capacity of the people, the young people in the field, my students, they have two Thai students, Kwan and Nuk here, who has, without the Earthwatch volunteers, they're not going to have any opportunities to interact with foreigner citizen scientists and try to learn how to communicate effectively to the citizen scientists who do not speak Thai. They have to learn how to speak English and teach these people how to do camera trapping, how to do site survey, how to do setting up traps. So this is a very great experience for them. And to me, to being inspired by all of you, by all the volunteers, because everybody come there with a good intention, have a lot of experience to share. I have the volunteer that worked for NASA. He taught me about all these, astronomers and all you bring the spacecraft and people like I taught me about octopus. I didn't know anything about octopus. I stopped eating squid because of her. So you've been inspired with these people and make the whole experience is so amazing and so unforgettable. And with that, I would like to thank you all and thank you for your support.
So we're actually going to do a round of Q&A. So actually, if I can invite both of you to come stand up here. And then whoever's speaking, if you can just repeat the question so that people who are on the webinar can understand what's been asked. Just a second round of thanks for these two amazing speakers. I think mentorship is such an important thing for Earthwatch, for our PIs, for our staff, for all of our volunteers. I think these two are great examples of that. And I know it's something that's really important to you in your careers. So with that, any questions? Vanetta.
Yes, those, yeah. No, actually, poacher, the poacher go after those. It's like, no, the poacher will hunt deer, Sambar deer, the dove food. And then once those deer population decline, then those not gonna have food anymore. But there are farmers that would go after those, like for example in Nepal or in Bhutan, where those are living among rancher and farmer. So and there's not a lot of natural prey for them. So those do go after livestock, and that get them into trouble with the farmers. And then those farmers will shoot those or poison them, and in some cases they kill the whole family. So that is a big problem in those countries.
I wonder if you've had anyone doing it now with deer. You know whether the prey population is changing.
So the question is that do the cow deer and prey population is changing? No, we do not have anybody right now, but there's one thing that we would like to do next in the next phase of the project, because my last trip to Thailand, I have a lot of people telling me that in all of these parks in Thailand, that the prey population seem to disappearing. And in Kauai, I don't see that many deer myself, and then also in Hoi Ka Keng, when we go to transect survey, we don't see a lot of sign of the ungulates. So it give me wonder what happened to the deer populations. But this past year is because of the very dry year in Thailand. So some of these animals might move into other area. There's more like water access. So we need to do like a year-round survey. It is something in a plan that we would like to do that.
Oh, sorry.
So anybody that didn't hear my big mouth, I'm just curious to know. Oh, for the webinar, sorry. Okay. So the question is, we've in the United States or North America, we've had to relearn to love the wolves and the coyotes and all that. And in Africa, they've had to learn to relove the wild dogs there. And I'm just wondering if there is an umbrella organization or if people interact at all in the different countries with the different species to share stories about how to change people's minds about these species.
Well, I don't think there's any one organization that do that, collecting all canid species, but everyone who work with canids, like Christina, myself, and Sy, right? You know, sometimes you spread love about dogs, right? So each of us do that, but maybe you should write a book about canids.
You know what? That has occurred to me. Yes, it has.
Okay, that's it, your next project. So Sy will do that.
Oh, unfortunately, the group of hunter-gatherers that Jim Chamberlain told me about, although he recovered from his heart attack, he was the only person who knew where they were. And he got better, but not better enough to go schlepping around in the Annamite Mountains. So nothing is known. I would love to go back and try, but you know, you need to be with somebody who has, see, he was great because he was an ethnolinguist and he picked up languages really quickly so you could communicate with people. This was an unknown language. That's what he was interested in. They had an unknown language. So that wasn't something that I could easily pick up. I needed to be with Jim.
I have a question for you. No, I just wondered.
Turning the tables, isn't it?
No, I just wonder. Do you have to return the money that you get from discovery?
I was very worried about that. No, I didn't. That was back when there was money for journalists. Yeah, thank God. I was very nervous. And you know, I tried to do Plan B and tried to do some other thing for them, and it was the only time in my life that I had a complete epic fail. I was able to turn in nothing for these people. I did nothing for them, but God bless them, because you gotta, you know, if you're gonna try anything, there has to be the option of failure, and they realized there could be an option of failure. Although, gosh, I didn't think he was gonna have a heart attack. But
We're just like we didn't catch any dholes in 6 weeks.
well, this is true. This is true. But you know what was so great? I gotta say that I was not devastated that we didn't see dholes. What this showed me, one, the camera trap was extremely revealing. Our last night there, the camera trap caught images right before we got on site, like the minutes before we set foot where the camera was. The next thing on the camera after the dholes disappeared was like our pants. So what it showed was a scout dhole nosing around very carefully, very suspiciously and smartly, sussing out that bait, looking over here, looking over there, looking over. I mean, then another dhole appears behind that dhole. So you know that others in the pack are there. And you see that animal hanging back, trusting in the scout dhole, knowing that the scout dhole is gonna, be our leader and is gonna do the safe thing. And then a third dhole appeared behind that one. And that just, to me, it gave me a little glimpse. Just those photographs gave me a glimpse into the sociality of these animals, how they depend on each other, how they trust each other, how smart and cautious they are. It gave you a little insight into the hierarchy or the jobs that different dholes have. And the other thing it showed me that was brilliant was, we think dogs, my dog's sleeping next to me. We know all there is about dogs, but boy, we do not know all there is about dogs. I was with the two world experts on dholes, and we couldn't find any dholes. And that to me says that there is mystery all around us, even in animals who we think are part of our families. They're very closely related to our dogs, as your cladogram was showing.
Mhm. Yes. Well, do we have any plan to expand the study to other countries or just focus on Thailand? So yes, there are plans. And then I said that we just have this workshop in Thailand in February, and we invite the expert from 9 countries to come to this workshop. And then actually there's a plan that the scientists from Nepal and Bhutan are very interested in calling those, and so they invite me to participate in the projects. It's nothing yet, but we in the talk, and then but they can do the work. I can, what we like to do, we want the scientists from the country to do the work, and then we can help even technically how to color the animal, the technologies that they don't have, then we can provide that. But these scientists, they're more than capable than I am to do the work. They just need a little bit of assistance. So we try to, especially in country that not much known about the species, we like to support and expand the program. Mhm. So the question is, are there any chance of captive breeding program? So yes, there are those in zoo. In Thailand, when people ask me should they have those in Thai zoo, I said no. Just protect the forest and make sure the prey species are there is enough. But there are also those in Indian zoo that there's a big breeding program, and also a lot of those in Europe. And in European zoo is quite interesting is that those that in European zoos mostly come from the northern region, which is those that we believe have at least 9 or 11 subspecies, and one in the northern regions are mostly gone. So the one that in European zoos and the one that in zoos in the United States would be imported from Europe represent those subspecies that not many left. So right now, what we try to understand with those populations is that to look at what subspecies are they, and then give that in as an insurance populations, and then if we can deal with the threat in China and those areas that where used to have those, then perhaps the reintroduction program could happen. Mhm. They are, as I said, they are well. There's a interaction between the two pack. Are they territorial, right? Well, they have their territory, but they do overlap in that area in the middle, and it seems that they temporarily separate, like they use the same area but they're not there at the same times. So in one, I have a data from like one day one pack is here, and the next morning that pack gone and the pack come in the same area, so they kind of like move around each other. There's a way to, but then, and then if they are at the same place at the same time, they often fight. So there's a record that one alpha male of one pack, this is before that we even start the project, but it's the alpha male from one pack was killed by the other pack. So there's a big pack and small pack. So the alpha male of the small pack were killed by the big pack. So I think the small pack probably try to navigate and then don't try to show up at the same times.
She was wondering what kind of temper do dholes have. Are they shy or aggressive?
I think they're more shy. They we encounter them in the field and they just run away from us. And even um, my my boss went to visit the field site last year. He's so naughty, very naughty boss. Even I said, please boss, stay with me. No. So we went in there looking for those, and they were there, and it's the area near the den. And when we walk in there, there were four of us, and then we can hear the noise, like growling and things. Because we get close to the den, there could be pups there. Of course, they could be very defensive, but they're not coming out getting us. They just use the noise to try to chase us out. So we can sitting there waiting to see, hope to see those running to us, but nobody come. And then my boss decides that, oh, I want to go out over here. I won't go far, go over here. But no, no, no. He walked another area. And then when the team came out, my boss is not there. And so I was like, where did he go? And this is the deputy director of SCBI. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like then he come out and then he was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I was on this little trail and then they have doe on both sides of me, but they're not the animal do not come out. They're just running along the wood and making noises just to chase him out. And then so he walked out, but he never had any doe that come right up to him. I think they're more shy than being aggressive, because being aggressive then will just like attack him right there. I probably would not have. I probably would have new boss by now if because the teeth pretty big.
So if you want to learn more about this project, thanks to these amazing presenters, Sy has written how many? 8 blog posts when she was in the field. She says, that was all she had to do. She was writing the entire time that we weren't out in the field. And Nuch was the star of our most recent podcast episode about women in science. So it was a really fabulous conversation with her too. So thank you both so much for coming. Great.